The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting March 11th, 2026 at 4 p.m. On the Zoom platform and in person. This meeting will be recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I, Andrea Solomon, hereby call this meeting to order. We'll start out with the review and approval of minutes from the February 11th meeting. Does anyone have questions on the minutes?
I didn't.
Me neither.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we'll review the calendar.
I think the most important thing, just sort of pending, is we will have one meeting between now and at least one scheduled meeting for now and town meeting. That is April. We have the April 8th. That's the second Wednesday, 4 to 6. We are kind of just adjusting some. I put the full calendar year out so you can get a sense of what's on the radar. I think I'll focus primarily for this group over the summer. We tend not to meet unless it's really necessary, so that's why you have the TBD. So July and August we tend to take a recess unless there's sort of pressing matters, and then we sort of reach out. We're also flagging this year the solid waste recycling rate hearing is something we want to do before July 1st. So that's scheduled for the June meeting. So the keys, we have water sewer rate hearing on the 13th, May 13th, and the solid waste recycling rate hearing on the 10th. So that's sort of a high level.
Don't you also need a stormwater rate?
The stormwater, we're not adjusting rates. We're going to allow the process to work its way through the first
So we don't have
cycle.
to have it.
We don't have to have it. We don't have to have an annual. It's when you do a rate change, and we may do something in the fall if necessary.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'll move on to public comments. If any member of the public has anything they'd like to address that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to do that. Anybody online?
Looking online, Linda, do you see anything? Anybody?
Yep. Lydia Ludinsky here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
So I'd like to thank everybody about all the work and success in working on the snow removal this winter. I do want to make a comment about one strip of sidewalks in my neighborhood, and it seems that the equipment, I don't know if it was a plow or a blower, was a little too wide for our sidewalk. And so it had some difficulty clearing the sidewalk. It was about 2 weeks from the first storm and 2 weeks after the second. And then I heard there was some repair work being done. So my first question is, when we have incidents like this, I know that the residents are responsible for keeping the sidewalks clear. But if we can't clear it and then the town can't clear it, and if there is an accident, because there were a number of people walking on the streets, if there is an accident in front of our house, who would be liable for that? That's my first question. And my second question is related to that as well, because I noticed that a few days after our sidewalk was finally cleared, and this is a strip between the historic district center of town, Monument Square, and Davis Court. I'm sure you're familiar with that. It's a very narrow sidewalk with some homes and properties very close to the street. And what happened was that one of the homes did have a truck of workers come and a more narrow snow removal piece of equipment. And that narrow piece of equipment then took the snow and they put it over to the little island there across the street from Dee's funeral home. There's an island, so they actually carried the snow with the new piece of equipment over to that little island. And I was wondering if that could be possible, instead of having the bigger equipment come through, and it has been ruining quite a bit of the property, the shrubs in the front, etc., the lawns from the homes. Could we also request to have that kind of activity happen to the succeeding 3 homes after that one home, and just have that one block done in the same way, because there's a nice strip of grass along.
Certainly, we hear you, and we can definitely look at that. Every November, we do a winter maintenance review, and we can certainly take your comments into consideration and address that, especially before the next winter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And what
you.
about the first question about the liability?
We can follow up on, that's a fairly complicated question, but as far as my understanding, the town, like many towns, does its best to maintain the sidewalks. They're not all sidewalks. We do have a sidewalk policy that I would sort of direct you to. It should be on the town website. As far as the liability, I would be sort of cautious as far as not wanting to step into that, especially with sort of a quick, I hear the comment, and we'll take that under advisement and see what information we can provide at a future date, okay?
Thank you, thank you.
On to commissioners' comments. Any updates?
I want to follow up with what she just said, because I had a few different citizens complain to me about the snow removal, and I was explaining that we were down a couple of sidewalk. I had somebody in West Concord feeling like they were forgotten, like Central Concord, like this area was well plowed and West Concord wasn't. They felt like they were the poor cousin. They were also concerned that they are near the middle school and the sidewalk there wasn't plowed for over a week, and kids were walking in the street to school, and they thought that the school should have been a priority. So my thought is that maybe next November, we actually really advertise that people come talk to us about their concerns, and that we
Or
can make,
before.
or before, and that we actually really talk to people, because I think a lot of people have some concerns, and we were down equipment, but I think there's enough public grumbling that I think it'd be best to address it instead of saying, we're not gonna see a storm like that for another 10 years, but you never know.
I will just offer, staff receives many response and many concerns and questions, so not the one of, but in total. And I think maybe when we talk about the snow program next year, we can sort of highlight this. But also volunteer, if you look at the news, there are major challenges that have been this winter has been unusual. And I think people will recognize when I spoke to the Concord Bridge, the big storm is coming. I was very deliberate when I said, people have to be patient. We have to, realize our expectations. We are unlikely going to meet all the expectations. This is not unexpected as far as the program. Aaron Bosco, our Iowa ground superintendent, does a great job as far as explaining it. And I highly recommend anybody, if they are interested, they can go to the website and actually see that recording and the explanation. I think it's really invaluable, because there is a program, a plan, and we stick to it. Otherwise, it really could be just, based on who's loudest, and that's not how we operate.
Keep moving.
Yep.
We're gonna move on to B3 citizen petition. We have the petitioner here for the, for number 30, the warrant article number 30. Dean Mansell will come up and talk to us. Thank you, Dean. Do you want to have a seat? So we have your preliminary slide presentation ready, but if you'd rather.
I don't believe I need that. I did bring a copy of the petition article, so if you want to pass that around, you can have the text. I hope I have enough for everybody.
I think we
Okay,
have.
we had it.
here.
You have it, it's in your packet?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then we're done then, okay?
So this is on the article the article for rooftop
Rooftop,
solar bylaw.
Rooftop solar. So the premise here is that the town has a set of climate action goals. A sub goal within that context is achieving a certain level of solar produced within the town. And we have not even come close to meeting that goal. The goal is 20 megawatts of solar production. We are at about 7.5. We will be at about 11 after we renovate the landfill and we put the solar we expect to put on the middle school. So we are still looking for places to put solar. And we are also looking to engage in a building project that will extend for many years. And so this article is effectively trying to prevent the kind of disconnect that we ended up with at the middle school project, where we decided to build a school. The town actively said we would like to have solar on there, please make it solar ready, and then we had to come back with a separate project to add solar. And this will just make sure that when we're bidding a project, that one of the subcontractors in the project and part of the design will include solar panels on the top. So that's the short form of this, and I'm happy to answer questions about the context and how we move forward with it.
Okay. Does anybody have questions from the commission? Want to start off with,
So Dean, the size, the 7,500.
7.5.
7,500, 7.5 kilowatt or
Yeah.
greater.
Yeah.
So what size of a building?
So, okay, so that is, with today's panels, you would have 2 rows of 8 panels could produce that much solar. It produce
Okay.
about 7.5 kilowatts.
So it could be a small building.
Could be a small building.
Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of it's a largish array for a home.
Mhm.
So it would be, but it's certainly within the realm of homeowners putting them up.
Yeah.
I know of homeowners with 10 kilowatts.
And what is the point about the systems behind the meter? Could you
Okay.
talk to that?
Yeah, I can talk to that. So there are 2 ways that the energy can flow. One is that it flows from the array straight onto the grid. That way, you're effectively just giving it to or handing it to CMLP. And then when you need energy, you buy it back from CMLP. So if you were to put it on a building and do it that way, the energy would either be going directly to CMLP and into their pocket, or you could potentially get a reverse flow that says we're getting a very modest fee, and then we can apply that for when you're selling us the energy that we actually consume. So that's going directly onto the grid.
That's the way the middle school.
That's the way the middle school will run.
Yep.
And so the middle school sees no particular operational benefit when the energy flows go that way. They go
They're
into
just a
the,
site.
they're a site
essentially
for,
just a site.
they're effectively a site for CMLP to put arrays.
Yep.
Behind the meter means when the energy is generated, it flows down and into your own building and feeds your energy needs. And anything you have that's extra will then flow onto the grid, and you'll be compensated for that by CMLP. And when you're doing it that way, you're offsetting operational costs that you would otherwise incur to buy electricity.
Mhm.
So we recommend this second alternative.
Why? What's the difference?
When you're publishing energy onto the CMLP grid, you will be compensated, but only for the exact amount of the energy that you're generating. When you're buying energy from CMLP, you have to buy the energy with the fully loaded costs to deliver it to you. Now, those fully loaded costs include the cost of transmitting it in from the larger, wider New England grid. So that's a transmission fee.
Yeah.
And also a fee that the light plant pays to the wider grid to ensure that there's enough generating capacity to meet the summer peak. So that's a separate fee called the capacity fee. These are broken out in today's, if you look at your bill today, you'll see these separate fees for transmission and capacity.
So your preference is around cost.
It's really,
You
it's
believe
really,
it's
yes,
more
it's much
effective.
more cost effective
Yeah.
because you're offsetting, you're not paying those extra fees. You're getting all the value of the energy
Mm.
and you're offsetting these bundled costs
Right.
that the CMLP has to.
But you have to run it, right?
You have to
it's
run it,
yours,
but
yeah.
I think most homeowners are capable of running it's not there's no moving parts.
But this would be public facilities, right? These aren't.
These are
So
only,
these could be larger.
these will be larger.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of clauses in here that cover the connection to the CMLP, especially if you have larger arrays, you have a lot of rooftop capacity. CMLP has had issues with too much solar flowing onto the grid. So the way this is constructed, that you need to meet CMLP's interconnect, you have to meet an interconnect agreement with CMLP in order to attach this onto the grid.
Mm.
Jason Bolger at the light plant is working on mechanisms whereby the interconnect agreement could include a way for CMLP. Let's say we build a new public safety building and it's got a large array on the roof. And the town is oversaturated with too much solar being generated within the town. And CMLP needs to somehow halt the presses, either store it or they don't have any place to put it. Okay.
Mhm.
So an interconnect agreement could be that they tell the public safety building, please do not send us any. We are going to do what's called curtailing. We're going to curtail any extra that you might have right now. You're generating it, but we cannot accept it.
Mhm.
So it would be curtailed and not flow. So that could be part of an interconnect agreement. And this is designed to say that systems need to meet any CMLP policy that they might craft, which might include we can shut you off if we need to.
Yeah.
So that's a piece of it.
And making it a bylaw, so it seems to, or one of our questions, I think, was that it seems restrictive, right? So bylaw means we have to do it.
Yes, well, we do and we don't. I'm kind of, I'm trying to make it simple for folks to understand. I consider this to be a policy that would be thought of as an opt-out policy. Right now, if we want to put solar on a building, we have to actively opt in as town meeting and as we appropriate money and as we get the building design, we have to opt in. This means the default is we're going to put the solar on because it's a bylaw, it's part of the town's requirements. However, the last bullet here says an exception can be authorized by the select board.
Mhm.
So to opt out, town meeting could go through an appropriation process. And in that appropriation, they could say, we also urge the select board to exempt this building from solar. So they could opt out, and then the select board would get that from town meeting, go, well, maybe we ought to listen to town meeting. They don't want this to have solar. It's not cost effective, or there are rational reasons why not.
Yeah.
And the select board could then issue an exemption. So there's an opt out, but it's not, we expect to have new buildings have solar.
Could you do it in a way that didn't require a bylaw? Could you say you have to have consideration
Okay,
of,
there are the other way to go.
Yeah.
Which, in crafting this petition article, I started there and ended up here. Is to urge the select board to adopt this as a policy.
Yeah.
Right. And that is, it was in the recommendations of the Solar Task Force report. And within the 2 years that report has been on the table, I have gently nudged individual members. It has never come on to an agenda.
you mean the select board or?
Select board.
Select
Board. I have urged them to please, can you get this going? We have this, it's in the report, it's a recommendation of the Solar Task Force. It didn't get any traction.
Mhm.
So I said, well, the town meeting can do that. And so that's why
That's how-
that's a bylaw.
Okay.
So
So
that's
this is gonna mostly apply to any new town buildings, right? Our
Wait.
schools are no.
only new town buildings.
Right,
Like,
okay.
To just give you an example, the city of Watertown in 2018 adopted a much more aggressive solar bylaw. Their bylaw says if you build a commercial building of over 10,000 square feet, it must have solar. If you build a residential unit of over 10 units, it must have solar. And so all of municipal buildings are likely to get wrapped into the commercial side of that. So it's going to cover their town buildings. It's going to also cover a lot of the construction that goes on. And I've been trying to reach out to the people over there to see how's that gone since 2018? How many buildings have had to be built with solar?
Have there been?
But my
So-
concern with bylaws is that they can be constraining, they can be restrictive,
Mhm.
they're hard to work around. And sometimes good intentions add more layers of bureaucracy that kind of impedes it kind of clutters up the delivery environment when you're looking to build new buildings.
Right.
Which we are looking to do.
We are looking to build new buildings, but we are hoping to build them with solar on. That's the whole point of this, honestly. I'm not gonna walk around that, Andrea. That's the point of this, is that we and town meeting can vote on that. Town meeting can decide it's too you know, we don't want to bylaws too constraining on this and that, but we have shown energy in the last N number of years around solar, and I think this is it. Its time has arrived. It's kind of the whole sense of it.
Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, so just going back again, sorry, the behind the meter. So I think the big difference is where there are a few big differences. One is where the investment dollars come from when it's before the meter, it comes from the enterprise fund. I would assume,
It could come from CMLP, but
Yeah,
you also,
and then-
okay,
behind the meter, for sure, it comes out of the say, building costs. So you shift the cost from one bucket to the other. The other thing
Oh.
here is, you mentioned the rate structure and that you are charged. In that case, it's facility, who's getting the charge? The town is getting the charge, not facilities, or facilities is getting charged for electricity.
For the electricity,
Yeah.
it's managed through our
Facility.
facilities. yeah.
Okay, so you said it's currently you're saving the cost of the grid, but with the new rate structure, the cost of the grid is baked into one rate. So where do you save that grid cost, and that all these is now all into 1 kilowatt hour price?
so you'll save that money because during a peak hour, you're gonna, in other words, the cost of the electricity is now gonna be offset. So if there's no longer any discretion, so far I have not heard what the buyback system is going to be. Previously, if you generated it in kilowatt hour and it went back onto the grid, you got about 6 cents back for that. But if you wanted to buy a kilowatt hour from the grid, when you wanted to buy one from CMLP, you paid about 20 to 22. So that was not a great deal for people who own solar. And I don't know what their repurchase policy is going to be when they go to TOU. Are they going to just give you straight up value or not?
So so just that we have all the information.
Yeah, so
in peak hour right now, it would be 30 cents.
30 cents
If you produce per peak hour and give it into the
into the
grid,
grid, what we get back.
it's 21, 9 cents difference.
So you're still making out.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the other thing is, for me still, it's like to make an interconnect agreement between two town entities feels for me complicated. So
compare that to the complications we have with the current project.
yeah,
We have two,
Yeah.
here, the problem with the current project is not just that we don't have it on there, and that we will eventually have it on there. But when we have it on there, now you have two entities managing the same physical building. You have somebody who's managing the panels on top of it, which is the CMLP, who are responsible for their maintenance. And then you'll have the schools who are responsible for the maintenance of the school. So in the event that you have these up there, you have one facility's point of contact who's responsible for the whole thing. The building, the roof, the panels, it's all coordinated through the facility's contact point at a single point. So
how much work is that for facilities?
I don't know. I'd like to say that, it's probably very technical, and I know we don't have the in-house, expertise at this point. We haven't been here, done that. All I'm familiar with, specialized equipment usually requires specialized service technicians. So, facilities would likely be managing project, responsible for trying to understand, what the technical aspects are. A skill set they don't currently have, and it's not necessarily baked in. But ultimately, they would end up managing and then also having to manage the budget, associated with that too. So any of the costs.
So would we outsource that then, or?
Well, more than likely, we'd have to be leaning into technical expertise, outsourcing, service, probably inspections. Again, this is something unlike the light plant. you know, Public Works currently doesn't have
Yeah,
much
so
of a
do we have any
understanding.
idea how expensive that is, that service contract, outsource it?
Don't have that information at this point.
So to be clear, right now, the light plant doesn't have this expertise either.
Yeah, they're outsourcing, so we
They
should,
outsource it all.
so we should have, yeah, but then.
All those grids, all those.
But then we
arrays we
should
have,
get some information how
Yeah.
expensive it is to outsource, because
Well,
at a
they-
certain point, it's.
They do it in a different way. Okay, they do it in a way where they don't even put capital behind those arrays. The arrays at the landfill and over at WR Grace are what are called power purchase agreements, and they make an agreement. And the agreement that they have is, this is what the price of the power is that comes out of that array that we will pay. And you're guaranteeing us this much power and we'll pay this price. And all the financing and the maintenance and everything, that's not our problem. We're just buying electricity from those arrays and putting it into the CMLP infrastructure. So they don't have this expertise over at CMLP.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have questions, Gretchen? Anybody else? Dave?
What does CMLP think about this?
I'm meeting with them at their next meeting. So I haven't gotten that feedback yet. I offered to go to this. They had a meeting this morning at 8:30 and I contacted them and they go, you will be on our next agenda. So I haven't got that feedback yet.
And you haven't had any feedback from the select board on this issue of nudging but not getting anywhere?
Well,
trying to get
those
opt-out?
attempts were, individual members were taken aside and said, hey, can
No, no,
you
no,
move this
yeah.
along? I'm not exposing any names or anything. I'm just saying I didn't get, and I also went in and publicly went in front of them and mentioned it at, either it was citizen comment time or something that I went to a select board meeting and brought it to their attention and didn't get any traction. So, yeah, anyway.
The notion of single integrated bids, the bylaws emphasis on single, is that true?
Yes.
Why is that and what?
Well, because that was really in response to, because the experience that we've had now is that by having separate bids, it turned out to be very difficult to have two competing schedules and project management teams trying to work on the same physical thing and bring it all together and bring it up at the same time. It turned out to be impossible in this particular case. The experience at the middle school was that although they were both kind of working in parallel towards an integrated result, there was a certain point at which push came to shove with the scheduling of the creation of the actual school, where they only had a 1-week window to get those students in there. So they said, you guys have to back off and get out of our way. We've got to make that window or everything else on that calendar just goes crazy. We can't destroy the Sanborn School and then rebuild those fields in the fall. There's a lot of things that will not fall into place if that week is lost. So this uncoordinated, this failure to coordinate was unfortunate, but it just brought forward the idea that having multiple different projects on the same schedule or trying to meet the same schedule is very good.
I mean, depending on the feedback that you get,
Yeah.
are you willing to push to go back to make it, a policy or are you stuck here?
No, I'm not stuck here. Unfortunately, this is kind of the way it's gonna get on the floor. I don't know if Carmen.
Yeah, I know, I'm
the
gonna ask.
Moderator would, I
Would you
don't
like-
know if the moderator would allow
Yeah.
something that says, I'm looking for a bylaw. See, when you have a bylaw, it's an action of town meeting and it's part of the
Yep.
town's legislative authority.
Right,
If you move it to urge the select board, you're basically throwing the ball over the wall from one part of the government to the executive side of the government and saying, please do this. We're asking you to do this. So it really changes what the
So you think it's
structure of this. I'm not
complicated?
sure the moderator would allow me to change it at this point. Yep.
All right, so do we have any more questions?
I don't,
Do you want to, is anyone ready to make a motion? We could save it for next.
Perhaps,
we'll have some discussion.
Okay, all right, thank you. Dave.
Okay, thank you. Yep. By the way, I have my happy shirt on because I'm going over to the cultural council who are meeting over in the library.
That's very impressive.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thank you.
All right, we have another citizen petition to get to, so if we can talk a little bit, we'll take a few minutes, otherwise.
So you want to do the other petition or you want to talk now?
Let's do the other petition.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do, this is, the next petition is, citizen petition warrant article 42. This is a proposed composting ratepayer plan. And Shelley Carlin is going to be presenting. Would you like to go through the slides that you gave us? Is that easier to just present
Let me
it?
see if I
slide by
can
slide?
get to them.
Shelley, are you the sponsor or are you the teacher?
I'm the sponsor of Voting Age Cafe.
Okay.
So this is being
Okay.
brought by the Sunrise Movement Club at the high school.
Okay,
And so they need somebody over 18 to
yeah,
be on there. So that's,
okay, I
Since you're
see.
19, you can.
and yeah, of course.
So this was not a class project?
No,
No, it was,
it's,
it's related to a club. I see.
yes, the
Okay.
Sunrise Movement.
Yep.
And Ileana Benson, who will be presenting this at town meeting, has sports practice today. So I'm here on her behalf.
Can I ask, I mean, I'm familiar with the Sunrise Movement. Are there other towns in the area that have adopted this so that they took this, or is Concord kind of a forefront of pushing this forward? Or did they take this from, I mean, the Sunrise Movement, I have some of my old students are like big in the Sunrise Movement. And I'm wondering if this is kind of a cookie cutter they've been putting out for other people? Or is this something that Concord came up with, or is this something that, I'm just wondering how, where it's come from?
This is Concord specific during the Warren article.
Yeah, but did they take something from the Sunrise Movement that they'd already, like, here's a draft, go ahead and tweak it for your own town?
No,
You
this
know,
is a Concord thing.
from start to finish. Okay, that's what I want, thanks.
Okay, I think the slides are up.
Yep.
Okay, so Article 42 is a proposed composting ratepayer plan. It's basically asking the town to come up with a plan that will work for Concord. So we have, it addresses two problems. So one is an environmental problem. We have 21% of the waste stream is food waste. And that becomes, that emits lots of methane in the landfill because it doesn't get oxygen when it's in there. So next slide. The second problem is a capacity problem. So all of this landfills in the state of Massachusetts are expected to be at capacity by 2030. So after that point, we'll be shipping all of our waste out of state. That includes incineration ash. So our current policy, town and state, are simpatico, where we both have goals of 30% waste stream reduction by 2030, and Concord's probably not going to reach that goal because we haven't had substantive changes since 2020. So on the state level, we have there's a 90% reduction goal. And it's expected that the current commercial restriction of 100 or half ton per week will be increased to a 100% organic ban by 2028. And the residential side, they're expecting 100% ban by 2030 with a municipal compliance program. So we really, as a town, need to be prepared for these changes that are coming, because I don't think a lot of people know that this is going to happen. Next slide. So right now, we're spending about $3 million collectively as a town on our municipal solid waste stream. And if we divert
Where did you,
21%,
get that information?
right now, the cost for our trash service through the town is $512 a year per household.
For trash or for composting?
This is just trash. This is the trash stream,
Okay,
right? That's at 512. If you have Harvey, then it's a $831 a year. So I didn't do a thorough survey of the different private services, but that's a good ballpark. All right. So right now, about 10% of households compost, use curbside composting. And we're at our capacity for receiving density discounts. So we've done as much as we can at the individual level to reduce our rates based on private signups. So if we did a municipal program, like the most minimal municipal program, we could get a 10% discount through, for example, a preferred vendor contract with Black Earth. And that would save $26,000. That's a 2x discount savings. And if everybody in town who's curbside eligible, that 5,500 people signs up, then that's $110,000. Next slide. So on top of a discount savings, we'd also have tip fee savings based on what's diverted from the trash stream. So right now, based on what people are composting, we're saving $12,000 just in, trash atoided at the landfill. With a 2x subscriber rate, then that's another $12,000, right? So that, and with the municipal discount, that would be over 50,000 in savings for a basic program. And if you go back up to the 100% rate, that's over 200,000. Okay, next slide.
When you say 100% rate, you mean if everyone in town?
If
every
everybody
household-
eligible for curbside service composted, so
So-
5,500 households.
But not that the 5,500 households, they don't all have the waste management contract. They're not all subscribers. It's 5,500
Right.
that are eligible, 5,500 that are eligible.
Right, so those numbers are for composting. So basically, assuming we have 5,500 eligible,
You're saying if everyone composted, that could,
yes.
okay.
So I'm giving you the max possible. So that has nothing to do with,
One slide, sorry, very good. So I'm a client of Black Earth, I pay $180. So how do you get to the 204?
I pay 204.
Mhm.
Have you checked your rate lately?
Sorry?
Have you checked your
Yes,
rate lately?
yes, because I just got it 3 months ago.
We have a difference in rate.
So
That's interesting.
I'm already sitting at 180, so one thing is we have to check because I think because Concord is already at a unusually high penetration for Black Earth, you already get certain discounts. And second, you have to account against the savings, the cost on public works to run, handing out all the bins and all of that. So there's cost generated on this side. So this is kind of a gross calculation, but not a net calculation. So
None of these would take into account the staff time that's
Yeah,
required
that's
to
my
stand up
Yeah.
this program, right? This is just if you were to call Black Earth on your own or call a composter on your own and subscribe.
Yes, that's what's happening in the first column.
Mhm.
Okay, if we were to get a municipal discount, with just a preferred vendor discount.
Wait.
With very
Right there, so that's if everyone called and subscribed on their own. You haven't calculated any costs that it would cost our staff to do that, right? Their time,
that's just the savings from the discount program.
yeah, so
That
no
number.
overhead cost.
you have no overhead costs calculated in these costs of our staff time.
Correct. That's
Okay.
just the discount savings. But we can, there's more information if we keep moving.
Sorry.
So there's tip fee savings. So the article is asking for Public Works to come up with a plan that works best for Concord. So the language is very loose. So next slide. So Melrose has an enterprise fund like ours. And they're doing a private vendor composting. So the most minimal program that you could do would just be having a preferred vendor contract. And then volunteer efforts to increase subscribers.
Who would be the volunteers?
The Sunrise Movement kids have volunteered to offer their time for it. I'm sure the climate action folks, or Mothers Out Front, different groups in town could put some time in. So the more expanded program, which would maybe include bins and things like that, are available through SMRP grants. They also have, I think, up to 80 hours of municipal staff time support time to offer. It's part of that program. So that would be another option, would be the expanded ratepayer program, which would include more staff time you're talking about.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would it be possible to get the costs that Ashland, Holliston and Milton, that how that's increased their overhead or whatever?
That's all
Yeah.
private vendor relationships, so they would have to inquire about specifically which contracts they have.
Okay,
I
Is there-
well, by the way, subscribed to Black Earth. And I love it. We love it. It's really done a great thing. But I'm still listening to your questions.
is there any more slides?
There's I think one. So this is another option. If we were to do a town facility. So could we do it less than 204 per household per year? Or it's about $1,100 per ton right now. So if you look at trash fees, it's at 102 a ton, right, for the chip fees. So could we do composting for less than what residents are paying now? And I did the calculations and I can sit down and show this to whoever's interested, but it's basically if we get around 3,000 subscribers, we start to get significant discounts on what people are paying. If we do a private facility, and the SMRP funds have between $50,000 and $250,000 loans, or not loans, but grant programs for municipal facilities.
But then again, on that, you haven't put in staff time on that, because for us to have a facility like we have right now, the compost site, which doesn't take our kitchen waste, but there's 2 or 3 people there, twice a week, those hours, and the program that we had, the pilot program we had, there was a lot of inappropriate things in the compost stream that had to be picked out. And so to do this one, even though we could get significant savings, there's no cost associated with the incredible huge amount of manpower that would be needed by town staff to do that.
So if you look at number 2 and you estimate a $2 million start cost,
Who would be paying that?
that's well, that would be part of the consideration,
No,
right?
because this doesn't include any funding, so there's no funding involved. So that's why I'm just having a hard time understanding where you're getting to these numbers. Cause you haven't considered the cost of it to the town.
Well, that's why we're saying these are options that could be in the plan the Public Works proposes that would work best for us. This is just sort of background saying, hey, guys, come up with a plan that's perfect for our town.
Is there, why do you, so you said the take up is 10% right now?
Right now.
Privately. And why do you think it's not more? Is it pricing?
That's a good question.
So,
Because if it's not pricing, then, you may never get to a scalable, process. So you may want to ask the Sunrise Club, maybe they could do some surveying to try and find out what are the impediments to composting? Is it pricing? And if you had a 20% discount, would that mean everybody would go to it? I think the answer is going to be no, because I think there are other issues with it, but I don't know. So maybe that might be
there's some
something.
comparison. The Black Earth had an interesting presentation. So I said Concord is already one of the communities with the highest penetration. Lexington got a grant and they're subsidizing heavily. They're about half with subsidies on where Concord is if you do it per household.
Because they made it cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They use their taxes.
No, they use right now grants. The
Oh,
grants
okay.
run out at a certain point.
Yes.
That's the other problem.
And they can't
Grants
provide
are only
it.
run a certain time and then you're there.
Yep.
So the question is, the typical thing, what's the price sensitivity to increase it? I'm all in favor. We have to just compost more, so my family, back to my parents, we're composting since 1981. So I grew up with a lot of messy composting. So I'm all in favor. I'm more interested is how do we not just improve on the margin by bringing it from 10% to 11% to 12% with a lot of overhead. I'm more interested is what can be structurally done, given that in one slide you brought about the 2030 number of years to make a significant change in scale, and what are the methods behind it. So that's and I don't know if a ratepayer program like this is the solution or something else.
Maybe communities could get together. I mean, yeah, could you have regional agreements with Black Earth that help them, lower the cost? I don't know, but I think putting the town in the middle of it is not, at this point, I don't think is something that I'd want us to do.
I have another question, which is, what if we don't do anything? You at the beginning of the presentation, you showed, I thought, some numbers and some projections about what's gonna happen, that we're running out of space, that we have, right? So I would like to know here, what's the cost of doing nothing? Of not investing in,
Cost of doing nothing, so the tip fees are expected to go up significantly, let's say 5% year over year. So in 5 years, it's like $131 from the 102 we have now per ton. And it's just projected to rise, right? Because our trash is gonna have to all be shipped out of state.
So at that point, like right now, Justine St. John is our programming analyst for our waste management.
No,
contract,
no,
right?
for Public Works.
For public works, I mean, for public works, but our contract right now, sorry. Our contract right now is with waste management, and waste management right now doesn't have composting, so. As these fees increase, as our landfills fill up, that may become an option through that. And I assume that every time we look at a contract or renew a contract, you're looking at all the options involved for the town. For the subscribers to that.
Yeah, so I actually had a conversation with Waste Management recently, and when we changed our program the first time. There was a lot of change that happened back in 2024, and we wanted to keep the change the way it was. As effective as we could, without adding any additional things to it. The problem that Waste Management would have, first, at this moment, they do not have a plan for that. They do not have the ability to do this. But at the same time, they also, because they have so many people who have signed on to additional private contractor companies for composting, there's no incentive to get off of it. So there's no way for them to know, when they come in and they give a bid for 3,500 households that are going to be picked up trash, we know we're going to have between 3,500 and 3,900 households that they're going to pick up trash and recycling from. But for compost, they have no bearing, because it might be, maybe those 600 people still like Black Earth. There's no incentive for them to jump off to go onto a different vendor. So that is a consideration. But that's where we're at this point.
And I would like to make sure it's like we go back to the text of the article. The text is
Urge the.
Urge.
Yeah, it's an urge, yeah.
it's an urge.
Yeah.
So that means is in a certain way, it's a request for us to spend time on this and to think what is done. The concerning part is spending time for Public Works, given our resources.
It was gonna come to us. It's
Yeah.
gonna come to
So it
us.
doesn't specify which of the different things it is. It doesn't specify what the costs of rolling it out and for it is. It's a request to spend time thinking about that. And that's, I think, one thing we have to think about is when and how can we do it, given the significant resource constraints we are having, and we're hearing from FinCom again and again.
Yeah.
Can Public Works do everything we are supposed to do? So
Yeah, there's a tremendous burden on staff right now. We are short-staffed in some departments. We have, it's just very hard to put more tasks on staff that are already have a lot of tasks to do, right? I mean, we just heard from FinCom the other night about archivist who'd like some help with software to, so he can fulfill all the citizen requests for information, and that, you know, they gave that a hard time. So I'm really sensitive on overburdening staff, which already has a lot to do, and then putting a new program on that doesn't even seem that necessary, because we do have a pretty good rate of composting, and I think increasing that rate is definitely within all of our interests. But is this the way to do it, or is it like having more public programs and a chance to learn about composting? And I don't want staff to have to go out and teach everyone to compost. That could come from the students from Concord Can, from Reuse It. I mean, we could set up programs right out here on drop-off, swap-off days that show people how to do this and how to get involved and how to sign up themselves. So I'm just really sensitive on putting staff in the middle of all that and making it their job to get that done. I mean, I think it's a great thing for the community and it's a great thing for the world, but we could all be a part of that and not put it on staff. Like, it's a great idea to compost more, but now we're saying, yeah, we should do that, and let's make staff make us compost. I think there's like another better way to do that and to increase that rate of composting in Concord. Does anyone else have questions? Because I would like to move on.
You're going into deliberation already, yeah.
So another, I would say, advantage of having a municipal foot in the water here is it potentially has benefits for the ability to negotiate like waste contracts. Just knowing on the data side, like how many people are composting and how much they're composting. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
I think it's great that the students did this.
Yeah.
I think it's great that they get involved with governance and they understand how it works. So my compliments to them, to that group.
Yeah.
Pass the law. Okay.
All right, good, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're running short of time, so I don't know if we have much time to talk about this stuff. We might have to save that for our next meeting, or we can do an interim meeting like by Zoom to talk about these. All right, so let's just move on to D5 roads paving and the safety program. So we're gonna invite the TAC members up. If you guys want to grab a chair, we'll move over and make room. And Sue Newgren is gonna help present. I think they should have lunch with. Everybody. Okay.
I think, like, why are we all have to this? They're like trying to make it make sense.
You don't find.
Yeah, if we can keep two spaces here for staff, then we'll just, Bill, you can sort of get us ahead of the.
Public comment on that
there.
last
Mark's
question,
gonna
or do-
come around here.
At all?
Ellen, do you want to come over this way?
Sure.
We can have
At
staff.
the next meeting.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you, Ellen.
Just watch all the.
Yeah, I'll try not to trip myself.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, no.
Andre, I'm sorry, this is Rebecca. It says that
Oh.
I'm not able to start video because it's been shut down by the moderator. So if you wouldn't mind asking the moderator to allow me to open my video.
Okay, hold on one second.
All right, so Public Works already opened our meeting, but
Okay,
Mark is gonna open the TAC meeting.
okay, so I'll open the task meeting
Start video.
March 11th, 2026, and I'll do a quick roll call. Rebecca,
Here,
Ellen,
Here.
what's his name? Bill,
Here.
Nick here. I think that's gonna be it. Mariana, I see Mariana online.
Oh, couldn't find my butt here on the phone.
Thank you very much.
And Mark, Rebecca, can you see now the screen?
yes, thank you so much.
Okay, right,
Okay,
okay,
great.
thank you, okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna set the table a little bit. Why are we all here today? We are all here today because last year at town meeting, the town voted overwhelmingly for Article 8, which was the debt exclusion road maintenance program. This is very exciting for all of us here. To improve our road infrastructure, specifically focusing on the pavement condition index, the PCI, and bringing that up from around 73 to closer to 85. by the end of 5 years. I got that right? Okay, the PCI is a metric by which the success of this paving program will be judged.
In 5 years.
In 5 years, we have 5
There'll be more
years.
metrics than that, but that's okay.
But that's one of them. That's a big one. So in addition to the 25 million borrowed over 5 years for the paving program, there is an additional 2.5 million for pedestrian safety initiatives. Pedestrian and safety initiatives. The advisement on those projects will be led by the Transportation Advisory Committee. They have been working hard on reviewing a mechanism for sorting through community concerns and suggestions for safety improvements in the right of way. So that's a little bit separate from what the Public Works usually does. So what we're going to focus on today is Steve is going to take us through the first part of the planning for the roads pavement program, and TAC can focus on lower cost safety initiatives that can be woven into that program. Hopefully, we're hopeful of that. That paving program is starting this construction season, right? So the TAC is going to be a little bit under the gun to look at that stuff, but they can do it. TAC and Public Works Commission, that we have slightly different charges. TAC is going to assist with the prioritization of the transportation and safety projects, collaborating with residents and staff. Public Works more provides policy guidance, right? We make recommendations by improving organizational effectiveness. So we're more like let's look at all of it from bird's eye view. You guys are getting down in the weeds at some point. So Steve, you can take us through
Sure.
the first part of that.
You don't want to say anything out of no? Okay, good. I'm Steve Zucker, town engineer. I should introduce the folks who are going to help us with this discussion. Joe Cormier, the new assistant town engineer. Congratulations to Joe. And Bill Scarpelli from Stantec, who's been helping us with putting this plan together. So, great introduction from the chair. It covers exactly why we're here. The only one thing I want to emphasize on, when we put in the 27.5 million spending effort a year ago, then Chair Weaver helped us a great deal in explaining what this was about. And many times he said that we are paving the streets and we are going to look for opportunities to improve the safety. So that's out there. That's been out there for a long time. And whereas Stantec has been helping the town with looking at overall transportation, looking at residential requests regarding safety and how we're going to package all of that together, there are definitely opportunities within the paving program to improve safety on those streets to be paved. And we have been trying to keep up with the paving schedule, the 5-year program. We don't want to wait till we figure out the safety and then start paving, because we wouldn't meet that 5-year goal. The paving program, pavement management, and Joe will go through this, is set up such that you have to stay on schedule. You have to give the treatments to the roads that are at a certain deterioration, make it allowed to deteriorate further. We're talking about multiplying the cost. But that's why I think it's really important that we stay on schedule. So every year we come here to talk about the paving program. We do 2 major presentations. The first one in the fall, we give a briefing. So last November we were here before the PwC, and we discussed the general approach to selecting streets and so on. And then as we get closer to the contracts and closer to construction time like now, we come and talk about which streets have been selected and what we're going to do and so on. Difference this year is now we're talking about pretty much double the cost, the annual cost that we've been doing. And as the chair mentioned, we will transition that discussion into what we can do with safety. And that's why Bill from Stantec is here. So with that, I'll just let Joe go through the presentation discussing the paving part first.
Yeah. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, so these are the kind of 6 topics that I kind of want to cover. The first bullet point is kind of going the overview of the pavement management program, which Andrea kind of already covered, but I'll touch upon it in a little bit more detail. Item 2 and 3 will kind of go over the development and how streets are prioritized for the selection to be incorporated into this program. And then 4 and 5 is kind of the implementation of the first 2 years of the 5-year program. So a quick overview of the 5-year pavement management program that the town authorized $25 million, appropriated $25 million for our pavement management program. So that covers not only construction, but engineering costs and material testing as well. So part of that plan that was developed in consultation with Stantec was a resurfacing plan. So it outlined what streets we're repaving, where we're doing it, and the treatment that they're going to receive. So overall, that was 57.5 miles of traditional paving, and another 12 miles of some sort of pavement preservation treatment, which I'll get into a little bit more detail about that. And then there's another $2.5 million in additional budget for these safety improvement projects that we touched upon, and we'll get into more detail on that towards the end of the project. And then to go over the goals, it's to improve the PCI to mid to high 80s. Currently it's a 73. And with that, and improving the PCI, the idea is that the long-term run rate cost is going to be decreased. You're trying to maintain roads that are in better condition, rather than always playing catch up with a larger backlog of repairs. And the final goal here is to effectively and efficiently incorporate these safety improvement projects. So this is the kind of methodology of how these streets were selected to be prioritized, I guess, and incorporated into the program. So every 3 years we have a third-party street scan come in, and they do a survey of the 108 miles of streets, and they put a pavement condition index to that. So we break out those 108 miles into 426 segments, and we get a condition index assigned to that. And this graph here on the right kind of depicts how we kind of the methodology behind that, right? So if you have a brand new road, it has a PCI of 100, and then it kind of follows that deterioration curve at varying rates of deterioration. So you can see the horizontal bands there. We call them treatment bands, and they're different bands of I guess degrees of repair that would be needed with their associated costs. So you can see as the road deteriorates and has a lower PCI, that cost increases significantly. So as Steve mentioned, timing of these treatments is key. And if we push these off, the higher the cost is to bring that up to an acceptable level. So what we're trying to do is prioritize these streets that are at the lower end of these bands before they deteriorate further, and it's more costly to repair.
What's SY?
Sorry, what was that?
What's SY on the chart?
Square yard.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So one question, I mean, at what point, and I know we talked about something about them getting increasingly deteriorated, is there a point on the y-axis where it's gets deteriorated quickly?
Yeah, so the steeper the curve is there, kind of in the middle.
In the middle. Okay,
Yep,
great.
yep,
That's the bad part.
It's the fastest rate of deterioration.
So if you're from 74, if you get beyond 74, you're in a bad zone.
You're in the bad, yeah, so you're gonna deteriorate quickly to a point where the road's deteriorated so bad that there's nothing left to deteriorate
Yeah.
further.
That's your red.
That's your red down
Yeah.
low.
Got
Yep,
it.
yep.
Thank you.
And when Joe, just to highlight, when Joe says the program looks to try and prevent a treatment of $29 to $39 per square foot dropping into the more expensive.
Yeah.
So you're looking at these roads in these areas before they actually phase shift into more cost. And so some roads, why this road versus that road? Generally, one road, they look kind of the same, but one's going to deteriorate a little bit quicker and end up needing structural, and that's part of the engineering programming.
So one
work that's
question,
done.
are you working from the bottom up, the red zone to the yellow?
No, so we're actually working in each individual,
Okay.
those horizontal bands there that have routine maintenance, preventative maintenance. We're working in the bottom of each one of those bands. Those
okay.
are the roads we're targeting. So we kind of want to catch those before they fall into the next category where it's a more intensive repair. So it's a comprehensive look at it, and then obviously there's traffic volumes that we have to look at and kind of prioritize those as well.
Sort of like stabilize the patient and then.
Yeah.
You're the EMTs on the road.
So this kind of gets into the implementation of the program. We broke out the 5-year program into the first 2 years. Historically, we've only been able to do 1-year contracts because that's the only the appropriation we've had. But now that we have multiple year funding, we're implementing 2-year resurfacing contracts, and we kind of broke those out into different parts of the town, north and south, just to kind of make less conflicts with construction. And then here I just have some metrics of what those contracts look like. So we have 25 miles of mill and overlay, a half mile full depth reconstruction, 9.5 miles of crack sealing, and 700 feet of fog sealing. And I'll give you a quick overview of those in the next couple of slides. And then again, I just want to make a couple of notes of the benefits of the multi-year contracting. Obviously, there's more work. Contractors want to secure multiple years of work, so it's more advantageous to them to bid on it and give better bid pricing. So that's kind of the biggest benefit. And there's also some flexibility in construction schedules. We can kind of move streets around from year to year. Obviously, there's some concern with that if depending on where it is and where it's deteriorated. But there is some flexibility there. And then contractor efficiencies, they get used to town policies and procedures. It's not starting from scratch with a contractor every year, which is helpful. And two, we can start early every construction season and maximize our construction
So one
season.
other question, Joe, I mean, do you have any sense, even roughly, being able to go beyond 1 year at a time, what the possible improvement in, increased efficiency or cost reduction might be?
Yeah, so I mean,
Roughly?
I don't know about cost efficiency,
Okay.
but at least it reduces administrative work
yeah.
drastically. And two, we struggle with getting contractors on board early.
Yeah.
Which pushes our construction season out to May, June, where this year we're lucky enough to get contracts not in place, but the bidding process started early. And then obviously next year they're already going to be on board, so we don't have to go through that process again.
Yeah, it just seems like it's a big, I mean, I don't know if Ellen, you can comment, it's like a big cost efficiency.
Oh, there will be, yeah, there
Do you have
definitely.
any sense of like what it might be?
And no, I think we can kind of look at the numbers, but I think just
Yeah.
by having the volume and quantity is very important.
Yeah.
And the schedule, which we've always historically started the construction season relatively late.
Yeah.
Which is really an impact on, sort of the quality, conditions, impact, rather than the summer when it's more quiet in town. We end up doing a lot of work in the fall.
Right.
There's efficiencies there, impact. So there's a cascading series of benefits. How to quantify, qualify them, I think is what we've got to
So
look
let
at.
me just add that. So cost efficiency is definitely there, how to quantify, but if someone is looking for cost savings, that's also a difficult thing to look at because it's always based on the market.
Of course.
Right, and Joe might get into this, even with the current pricing of oil. It will affect the asphalt cost, it will affect
Right.
fuel costs, and that's not part of the bid.
Right.
That's outside of the bid.
It's only that it strikes me that having multi-year, ability to do multi-year planning is cost saving. That's all.
Yes.
So I'll just give you a quick overview of the 4 different treatments that we're going to be deploying. So the first is full depth reconstruction. This is the most intensive treatment that we do to a road. It's typically when the road's beyond disrepair, is showing signs of base failure in the subsoil. So this is when we pulverize the road 12 to 16 inches below the road surface and completely regrade the road. So you have a completely new road when you're done from 12 inches below the surface, the soil to the full asphalt cross section. This is when we do this is the type of treatment where you want to fix any subsurface issues because the road's completely ripped up and there's no additional work you have to do beyond this to restore the road. Then you have a mill and overlay, which is removing the first 1.5 to 3.5 inches of asphalt. We don't go down to gravel here. There's some minor changes you can do to grading to fix puddling issues. It improves rideability.
What is, if you take off 1.5 to 3.5 inches, what's left there? What thickness of what?
No, it depends.
right?
It depends on the street.
Mhm.
So like when we did Main Street, I think we had like 9 or 10 inches of asphalt out there.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's dependent upon the street. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 inches, but again, you wouldn't be doing a 3.5 inch mill and overlay on a residential street that would only have 2 inches to start. Yeah.
And when you're looking at these sorts of treatments, we've also dovetailed looking at the underground utilities as well.
Oh, I see, yeah.
You know, so this is really critical to anticipate these. That's why a 5-year plan is important, and that's why we talk amongst water sewer, municipal light plant, and with stormwater. Now will be kind
Are
of
you going to
National
determine
Grid,
they have
Comcast.
plans already, or you don't want to?
No, we're aware of them. There's
Be about-
communication going on so that we're not working in a vacuum and,
Yeah.
you know, make sure, you know, if there's a plan that they have enough lead time to do some of the work. For instance, Silver Hill was an example of a neighborhood where there was a serious road deterioration issue requiring major reconstruction. And at the same time, there's a water main. And so we phased it, water main first. That was one cycle, then temporary, you know, paving, and then permanent paving.
So, I mean, along with safety, I think it's important. I mean, I guess my
Mm-hmm.
observation is you were looking at all utilities to
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
optimize.
Yeah, so we've been ever since we started developing this 5-year program, we've been pushing it out to the internal utilities and Comcast, National Grid, Verizon. Say, hey, this is where we're going in the next 5 years. If you have a project or have utility plans, start making plans for them. So we've been doing that for at least the past year.
Yep. National Grid is a big player. They have a lot of old pipes, leaky pipes, development program.
Hmm.
So we want to make sure they get ahead of us.
I know at least in Acton, my father was always complaining that this, every X years, they would, you know,
Rip up
tear
the
up the
pavement.
way.
They're
But thank you for-
universally a challenge.
But thank you for
Yeah.
thinking about the
Mhm.
whole systemic.
It's so
issues.
amazing that what I've been struck by is the variables, all the variables
Yeah.
come into play, because they can have a plan to do a road. And National Grid calls them up and says, oh, next week we're doing something right after you
Yeah,
finish
exactly.
the road, we're about to plan to tear it up.
Yeah.
It just, and then you're managing the supply chain, so
Mhm.
Right.
of the asphalt, it's just crazy the number of variables.
Is there any initiative in town to put more electric distribution under the road? And in any particular areas?
Residents always bring that question up and we refer them to CMLP and the typical answer is that they don't have the capital. But,
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
But how about some of these big new developments? I mean,
typically,
anyway, just might be
typically
good
new
to-
subdivisions do underground,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So these are the 2 preservation type treatments that we're doing. So these are usually more geared towards roads that are in good condition, and we're trying to maintain them at that good condition. So we do fog sealing. It's literally spraying a liquid emulsion over the pavement to try to retain the quality of new asphalt, to keep it flexible. It's almost like moisturizing the asphalt. When it dries out, you kind of give it that moisturizer to keep it flexible. That reduces water intrusion. And again, the process of this is very minimal. Minimally invasive. It takes 3 to 4 hours to do like a mile-long street. It's very quick. And then crack sealing, that's pretty straightforward. It's physically sealing the cracks in the road to keep water out. And water is the biggest factor in deteriorating. a road.
Question about the fog seal, is the reason that it's a small amount is that we only have a few roads that are miles of road that are any good?
So
Or is it because it's experimental in some?
So the past couple of years, we've done quite a bit of it. So we've kind of caught up with the backlog of it.
Okay,
But yeah, there'll be more streets in the years to come. Especially with the more paving that we're doing. So yeah,
to keep up with those.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Typically you do it within around the 5-year mark,
Mhm.
of when a road is paved. So
Thank you.
yeah,
That's great.
yep. And then
Just wondering, when you go forward, like when we're talking about having a lower cost, long-term maintenance, is it more fog sealing and crack sealing?
So
you're
that
looking
would be-
going Forward?
Yeah. So the higher percentage of roads we have in that PCI category there of 74 to 88.
Yeah.
Those are your typical candidates of where you'd start seeing those treatments being used.
So up there.
Yeah, up in this area
Then
here.
you do fog sealing and crack sealing.
Correct, low cost,
Over it, yep.
very little cost, and that's the preventative.
Thank you.
So when you think of preventative, it's low cost, and then it was mill overlay, reconstruction, much more cost.
So yeah, the next slide here is the list of streets that we're doing. It's a large list. I wanted to put a map together that you could see, but the map wouldn't be big enough.
I have
Um,
emailed so many of my friends with your GIS things. so
Okay, good.
when they're
That-
gonna be
that's what I
paid,
was
and
gonna
they're
bring
really
up.
excited, so the GIS map is great.
Yeah, so that was the initial run of our 5-year program. And that we're closely following that with the first 2 years. There's a little bit of variation, but not much. So we will be updating that map to reflect any changes. But again, it's not a big deviation.
Out of curiosity, has anybody like called you about, when the road is getting done?
Yeah,
Did
and
get
you
much
can refer them
thoughts about
to,
it?
well, it's good you can refer them to the map and we have a plan, because before we really didn't, well, you're on the list. I don't know where you are on the list, but you are on the list.
This is actually more useful than the map to me because
Okay.
you have to drill down on the map and it isn't obvious how to find the information. So is this available?
We can make it available.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you would,
yep,
that'd be helpful.
Okay.
That would be very
okay,
helpful.
yeah, definitely. We can post it on the website right next
That'd
to
be
the, we could post the 5-year Excel sheet.
Maybe put the GIS
do
there
that.
too, because the GIS is kind of fun in terms of like color coded.
Yeah, it's a little interactive.
And Joe, this is just kind of an example of how you're kind of logging the work for the contractor.
Yep.
And mapping things out.
Yep,
So,
yep.
anything you want to call out, or this is just sort of your baseline?
I guess the only thing I want to call out, which Steve already kind of brought up, is the subject is. The list is subject to change based on liquid asphalt and fuel prices. So part of our contract, we have to put in that prices of asphalt are subject to change based on the change in liquid asphalt prices. So MassDOT sets those prices for us. So when a contractor bids on it, at the time of bid, there's a set asphalt price, and if that deviates more than 5%, we either owe the contractor that difference, or the contractor owes us if the price goes down. So with the prices being volatile right now, we don't know where they're going to be at the time of construction.
The same thing for fuel.
Yeah.
The contracts are all fixed price.
It's fixed unit
After that
pricing.
adjustment from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So really the price adjustments are only for asphalt tonnage, and then surface work. And that's where your fuel prices come in. And then this is just the list of streets that didn't get completed last year that are on the list to be completed this spring.
This should not happen. If we start soon enough, we can meet these. So this time last year, we were planning on doing this work. We had to wait till town meeting to get the funding. We got the contracts out and construction work started midsummer. And so this is what we didn't get to. This is where we're going to get the efficiencies of getting more work done and, and improving the PCI.
Yeah, it'd be good to post that too, because I think it's important that the public realizes the time scale of things. And
Actually, in general,
what's already been done.
whatever you can do to publicize the order of the roads and when the roads are being done. It's like, it's hard to go into the GIS map, you see it, or the list, but it might be a good public relations effort to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Just need a big disclaimer if things change.
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
So
It just-
so you're setting,
A snapshot.
you're
Yeah.
setting
But
expectations. and then-
that's been, it's more that to show people, like one of one of the goals of TAC is to communicate with the public. And so things always change, but if we say, here's your road, here's what's happening, I think that would be great.
Regarding the price of oil,
Yeah, we won't go there.
have you thought about a contingency plan? Like if it gets really crazy about either delaying this a year or anything else? If we're not.
Nick, I think it's literally on all of our kind of front of mind only as a week or two ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we need to be thoughtful. And, on one hand, we were touting the fact that, hey, we have all these funds to do lots of work in Concord, and we know, I was just at a public works meeting at Mass Municipal yesterday. Nobody has money to do work. They're waiting for the Chapter 90, which is all the funds they have, because the roads are
So we're
continuing
first
to
in line.
deteriorate.
So we're first in line.
So it's always a matter of we gotta, think about it. If there needs to be sort of an adjustment, we'd certainly be communicating it. But we're not just gonna go blindly forward, but I think we just need to be, we're mindful of what which is why we're flagging it for this group, because I think we need to understand the volatility.
And when we did the prep work for last year's article, it was very clear that, like Steve Duquin pointed out, is that time is a crucial effect, because where our streets sit,
Yeah.
not only on average, but if you look at the distribution, it's just sitting in a period where within a 3-year time period, it's falling very, very quickly down this
Right,
this
the
curve. Yeah, and that saying, oh, can we push it out a year or two? Then you're suddenly tripling or quadrupling the cost basically, because you just want to save, I don't know, 15% of cost on the asphalt. You know, it's you have to be very sensitive about where we are in a crucial point of finding your resistance.
It's too late to put an oil contingency fund on the town meeting.
Yeah. I don't think they're gonna go for anything above the 27 million. I think they're good.
So these are just some metrics that we've been looking at to try to track the progress of this program, to make sure that we're meeting the goals of the overall program and our, throughout the construction season, this season and throughout the year. So there's kind of 3 areas that we're looking at, and it's productivity, quality, and budget. So the first metric for productivity is length of road resurfaced. So we have milestones set in our contract that we know we need to meet in order to meet our goal for that year. So we plan on tracking the miles of road monthly and comparing to those milestones, as well as our 5-year goal. So that's one metric, and then the other one is our PCI, our actual PCI. Yeah, our actual PCI, tracking that annually, so we know where we should be after each year, based on the projections that were done by Stantec, for the 5-year plan.
When you say each season, what month is that?
So that would be typically November, December.
Okay.
So after we finish the first year of construction, we could be looking at that. So we have PCI data that we've collected 3 years ago. And we've been applying deteriorations to those for each segment, so we can compare that in the fall. But also we'll be doing another survey of our streets in the spring that we'll have live data for, that we can be looking at that as well. So that'll give us a good snapshot in time of saying, okay, we've completed 1 year of construction, we should be here, and we
Also-
can see where we are.
It's also checks your modeling, gives you feedback to your modeling that you can learn going forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So then for quality, we have material testing built into our contract. That's going to be performed by both a third party hired by the town and also the contractor. And there's certain standards that they have to meet within our contract. And there's stipulations on that as well as if they're not met. And then for budget, we track our budget ongoing throughout construction, but then we do it monthly as well. And we can compare that with our overall contract budget for our 2-year contracts. And then look at our overall budget for the 5-year program as a whole, to make sure that we're on track and we're not overspending. We know what we should be spending based on our modeling per square yard for each treatment. So we can look at that and then look at our actual cost per square yard.
How much do you think you're gonna spend in the first 2 years?
It's like 9 to 10 million.
Okay. And so when you're doing your tracking, you have assumptions in the budget that you came up with for the 9 million. When you bid the contracts, you'll then know this is what we're locked in at. How many vendors would you think you'd have for 9 million?
So we put out 2 different contracts, and we got bids back the past couple of weeks, and it came into that 9 to 10 million. And the lowest bidder on both of those was one contractor. It was Lazaro Paving.
Lazaro.
Yeah.
And they have capacity to do. They're saying, yep, we can do it.
Yep.
And there'll be a much more commitment to Concord now, because, the splitting it allowed a smaller, more sort of efficient opportunity. But, to keep it open, but with Lazaro, now they're really committed to Concord, both, and the bids were set up kind of north of Route 2 and south of Route 2, so they'll have equipment, materials in the neighborhood, you know, which is good, so.
Yeah, helps with
All right.
unexpected contingencies.
Yes, this is the,
This is the meat of the matter?
I've been waiting.
Oh, which is,
Okay.
so we're gonna have Bill from Stantec, talk about this, but before Bill gets into this, how the safety part is included within the paving, projects, I want to give some credit to Bill. Both what Joe and I have been saying regarding the engineering and science behind paving actually came from Bill. Bill is the one who educated us. He's the one who prepared the 5-year plan that we had it, you know, programmed for budgeting. So with that, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
He's been quiet through the whole thing, but it's really
Yeah.
his information.
But 58 miles of paving, got 108-mile network. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of paving. You're gonna get ahead of the curve. You should be really proud that you're at this point. And so we've been also assisting with not only putting the program together, but also working on identifying safety, road safety improvements. They're gonna be a part of this project. And the paving projects are what I refer to as book jobs. So they do, there's no engineering surveying, there's no upfront expensive cost. They're restoring the roads in place, very little geometric changes. And there's a lot of items, pay items that Joe touched on: concrete, curbing, paving, gravel, signage, markings. Those are items that we're gonna try to use in this road safety, the projects. The TAC is familiar with, just to kind of walk through some of the road safety projects. I think we can just go to the next slide here. Yeah, so this is,
Really, that's a.
This is a database, an Excel file. It's a very large Excel file that compiles various requests that you have received since the West Concord Master Plan, and I think it was 2010. So there's very old safety requests right up until the TMG, you know, a few months ago. So we compiled all these requests. You've got the cut through streets that was done by a consultant, Jacobs, Safe Routes to Schools, AECom. And so we put all these together, and we spent quite a bit of time reviewing them, you know, getting them in one place, getting them sorted. There's a lot of columns here, a lot of information. And we went through each one and tried to group them because there were similar requests about an issue. You know, it's the same location, but, you know, it came from Mothers Out Front and it was on complete streets. So we compiled all these together into what we call public safety activities. And we identified, right now, I think we're up to 110 project safety activities. So if we go to the next slide, what we did is we overlaid Joe's pavement management program on top of these public safety requests. But we really want to, you know, we've got an opportunity to spend low cost. We've got items low cost. We got a contractor being mobilized, and we're trying to target some of these. And here you can see in pink, and this is just the top of the list. We couldn't fit it on the whole thing. We didn't want to open it up here, but it's rather large. And these pink ones are the resurfacing contracts, 1 and 2, and whether it's in the north or the south. So we have just started looking at these Stantec engineers to really look at, you know, what kind of safety improvements can we make, and we'll touch on some of those. I will also say that this list has a backlog of about $28 million. It's gone to 29 million. as the chair pointed out earlier, there's only been $2.5 million appropriated for 5 years to address all these. So we're trying to use the pavement management program, some of those dollars and items to be smart about doing some of the low cost, signage and marking. That's gonna be a big one. Addressing bicycles, that's a big one too, which I'll talk about. In order to assist TAC and the public, we developed a ranking system. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's at the bar on the right. It looks at infrastructure score, people and places, and it's an objective ranking that will allow you to at least sort the list so you have a starting point. But right now, we are trying to focus on these pink streets, and by the way, there's 34 of them out of 110, give or take. So we just started, and go to the next slide.
And the pink streets are ones that are already on the pavement plan?
In the 2-year pavement program.
Okay.
So there's another 3 years left of it too. So
So I want to be just clear.
Good.
We are going to share this information with TAC. This is the
Got it.
introduction to what is almost, it's ready for, review and more complete discussion. This is an introduction to it, and basically using Bill's understanding and knowledge of all of the interests, but dovetailing with the roads program and the construction work we're going to do. And, it's just teasing out in pink things that are just another lens. Just like the ranking is a lens, it doesn't necessarily mean just because it's high ranked that it's a priority. It just means it should be on our radar. Just like with the pink, it should be on our radar because there might be an opportunity to dovetail with the construction. So it's just their lenses of looking at this so there can be better discussion and agreement as far as where do we go with the funds available. So that's really important to understand. So TAC will be given this information with an understanding that we will regroup and talk focused on the safety components, the $2.5 million, and where do we go and kind of what schedule. And we know this year is a little bit abbreviated. We've talked about this at TAC. Over the years, we're hoping there'll be sort of a routine dance between identified needs and activities, funding, tax input, the public input, and it'll be routine. Right now we're sort of playing catch up, but I want to say the $2.5 million is the freedom, the ability for us to do things that we've long around the table been frustrated we couldn't do. So just to be clear, this is sort of this introduction. So
Other question.
So real quick, what we saw was a refinement of what was distributed at the TAC meeting.
yes, Bill and team have done a little bit more looking at it. So you're going to get a better view, something. And again, it's going to be something you're going to start looking at, and it's going to raise some obvious questions. And I think, with a group discussion, there's going to be obvious, this makes perfect sense. And some might be, what about? And that's what the discussion I think at TAC will probably include. So.
And the sorting in terms, I'm sorry, I never understood the different people, infrastructure. That's a number of entities that, based on the number of entities that voted for that particular project, not like the number of votes at a particular public forum.
Or the people score?
Yes, the people.
No, the overall score.
Oh,
Yeah, the overall score is there's a whole appendix and summary that kind of
But
spells.
it's fair to say that it's kind of the number of entities that are kind of involved that would say that.
No.
it's-
Oh, it's a
No.
weighting, it's a
It's a
weighting
weighting.
based on factors.
Yeah.
I do not understand.
we will
I-
take time to go through this ranking.
We can
with
go
TAC,
through
yeah.
that, yes.
You don't
But-
have to do it now.
Yeah.
No, not now.
Right.
I don't think it's.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But it's important to understand the ranking, and it's an objective score to help you prioritize projects, safety projects. Where are we here? So we started, we just started, the snow is melting. We can actually see the edge of pavement in most cases, and so what we're trying to do is really identify what we have for pavement width. We're gonna be doing a lot of new markets. And one of those, one of our goals is to reduce bike stress level. There's a lot of shoulders, fog lines that are missing. They can be tightened up. And we're
Like the
studying,
motor vehicle lane width, you're saying.
Right.
It's tight.
not like tightening up the travel lane of the vehicles and opening up the shoulders,
Mhm.
make them more friendly to bikers. Even pedestrians that where a sidewalk doesn't exist today.
So they
You know,
ask, maybe, I'm sorry, you can tell me I'm off base here, but are you considering corridors? In other words, West Concord to Concord Center, as opposed to point intersections? As a priority, in other words, doing everything to get from West Concord to Concord Center, or, you know, other kind of common areas that people want to travel along for specific needs.
Yeah, generally want to go from, south to north, north to south, east to west, west to east. So Lexington Street is one of them, Bedford Street.
Yeah. Richard T.
Elm Street, Route 62, Main Street. It's tough. Some of these, Concord is old, where's New England? Some of these roads started out as a cow path, and we just don't have the right of way. Without property takings and very expensive construction, but one of the big goals is to reduce bike stress level. And we can get into the pictures here. So, trying to get 10-foot travel lanes here. It's very difficult to get a buffer. Ideally, we like to have a 2.5-foot buffer with a 4-foot minimum dedicated bike lane. Maybe on Elm Street, we're gonna do that. That's what we're looking at right now. This is, we're trying to go for this more, Lexington Street's a good example. Certainly, additional signage, marking, sharrows, showing the fog lines. Next slide.
So help me out. Are fog lines bike paths or not?
They're the white
understand the
guideline on the side.
They're not necessarily bike paths, they're a fog line.
See this, that's a fog line right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And is that a bike path?
Right.
A cyclist will use it. Is it an official bike path?
Yeah.
It's not wide enough.
Right.
So let me say that another way, we like to call them just shoulders. Use the shoulders, use the friendly shoulders. So, but the fog line is simply that white line.
Right, another, on that list, we had, pedestrian safety improvements. So there's opportunities on, we're doing some paving on Thoreau Street, Laurel Street, even Monument, there's stone dust sidewalks. I realize some of these are in historic areas, but there are historic materials like tumbled brick, pine haul bricks, that could be used to restore, a harder ADA surface on these sidewalks. Certainly concrete, asphalt will work as well. But those are things we're looking to recommend. Installing curb ramps, anytime you do any resurfacing, pavement resurfacing, and it touches the sidewalks and ramps, you need to bring the ramps into compliance. There's certainly a fair share of ramps that are missing. Those will get upgraded. And signage improvements, we've got on Thoreau Street, we want to do additional pedestrian crossing signage. Also showing doubling them up, especially on high volume, high speed roads, and then even doubling them up on the backside too. So that'll be some recommendations. And, the rapid, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, there's certainly a couple of locations where we're looking at right now for those. On Monument Street, the Reformatory Branch Trail. And you can also attach fog lights to these that they can be, they need to be hardwired versus solar battery, but they can also be used, and you can get a decorative light so that the light comes on, whenever it's dark, and it stays on. Also, in the safety request, there's a lot of issues with cut-through streets. and high speed, people going through neighborhoods. So in addition to the signage, putting up restrictive signage, you know, no left turn, right turn during peak hours, morning or evening. We will also want to do, look at speed tables to deter people from coming down the street. These are permanent speed tables examples, but what we want to do before we commit to that, you know, try to get feedback. And I think some of this feedback will funnel through tech. You know, it'd be a good place to start. And some of the locations we're thinking here are Hawthorne Street and Pine Street. And I'll turn it over to Steve.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
So I'm a European, I'm going often back to Europe, and what I saw there again and again, and started back when I grew up, is that often very wide streets where they start to build them back down. They have a bunch of residential streets where you work with trees and targeted parking areas to narrow roads, and by that also they put for the cars, give more room for pedestrian bikes on one end, slowing them down on the other end. So this somehow I've never seen these concepts I see in Europe, here in the US. Is this something, I don't know, generally not contemplated in the US or in general, or what is about these residential concepts that Europe is deploying?
They're generally referred to as complete streets or universal design to meet all, you know, bimodal, you know, vehicles to bicyclists to walkers, basically to accommodate the whole community like it used to be back in the, you know, turn of the century.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I think, for example, like Middle Street here is a very wide street, it is purely residential. So if we would ever touch that, I walk there every day. I should say that you can use trees or whatever just to make it more walkable, reduce traffic. So again, these, are you considering?
I recall when that street was rebuilt, and I was on the Public Works Commission. And the residents specifically asked that it be left that way, as a wide street with no sidewalks. And that was a different time. It was.
Yeah, but you plan at that time was to make it wider with the sidewalks.
No, there was no, they would ask that there be no sidewalks.
Okay, I only have different information, but I might.
So, but one of, I mean, I'm
Should be
saying,
sidewalks, there. I mean, the CA kids are in the middle
But I
of the
want to
street.
make it wider.
so one of the things you see, I mean, my son lives in West Hollywood, there's a lot of circles, a lot of roundabouts in the middle of roads. I don't know what they're called, I mean, I forget what they're called, but some kind of a diversion that
Yeah,
gets
diversion,
people
yeah.
to slow down, like I think, yeah, Old Marlborough Road, like it's thoroughfare. And like, you know, tell people you can do whatever you want, but it's so tempting to speed because it's straight away and you think you can see. You had a separate speed bump. I think the kind of what Sven's saying is a visual barrier that says, you know, maybe you should slow down. If you could, I know, if we could think about those things, be a little more creative, that would be, I think, really great.
I know we don't have money to build new sidewalks except for few repairs, few repairs and things. But along the line of what Sven is saying, one thing to consider in terms of narrowing travel lanes in some cases might be to provide, you know, sidewalk without taking down trees and going further into the verge. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, just some, depending on the location, if you have room, if you have a need for a sidewalk, you always consider taking an existing paved area if it's possible, and it might have a traffic calming effect in addition to not taking down lots of old trees, so.
I agree. And some of those things you're describing they tend to be more on the expensive side and need a little engineering, maybe some survey of.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Right, so we're trying to focus on, you know, the 34 project where we could really address low safety improvements, you know, right out the gate.
That's good.
Thank
So for the last slide, let's just talk about like next steps. That might answer some of the questions before you ask them. So I'll start by talking about what we have done since the last TAC meeting and now Stantec has started to go out on the streets and see, what's really achievable in these streets to be paved, identifying the needs, identifying the low-cost solutions for those needs. And so that's been done. And additionally, they're looking at that big matrix that you saw, continue to look at 34 projects, paved projects, with bigger projects can be accommodated within the 34 streets that we are paving. Some of them, you will find out that we will need some design, so the schedule will be far out, maybe a year or two, while we design, get a good cost estimate, try to get the funding, can we work funding from the $2.5 million into that particular project? Or do we have to get additional funding through grants or through other capital requests? So those are all the things that we have to do. So the next step for us is to have Stantec update that matrix, that data, the new data they're collecting, so they can generate a fresh list of projects with a correlation with the paving, and which we will then provide to TAC, that list. So for your own deliberation amongst yourselves, with the public, and give us the feedback within, we have set a timeline because, we have to proceed with construction of pavement of the streets. So we want to incorporate as much as we can in those contracts. So we have to.
So what is the timeline for that?
Yeah.
Because these guys meet, once every 3 weeks?
Right,
And-
that's what. I would do.
Yeah, and are you coordinating that with Elisa then? Or like, how is that information getting to TAC?
Yes, we'll go through it, Lisa.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we could always have an extra meeting if it's facilitates better timing. And I am I correct in understanding that right now we're sort of starting up this big machine which we're building as we started up, and hopefully in the future there's going to be much more lead time in terms of using this analysis for later project use, right? Just getting public input and
When
but
you
right now
mentioned,
we have to get it going, so.
you mentioned when there is more of a redesign. So what has happened recently is there's been a major redesign with zero public input. So going forward, is there a process of getting some of that design done, bringing it to planning so that TAC can invite public comment and then bringing it back to engineering? Like I've heard that sometimes that is written into an engineering contract or the contract with the people who are going to do the work, but that seems to have not been done recently. So in terms of like look at the main Baker Cottage redesign, right? That was all done and then it came to Public Works and then the public's like, well, why aren't there bike lanes? So how do we not have that happen again?
Well, I think in selecting the project, I think we have to talk about the goals of the project. And we have listened to the public, and we know that every project that we're going to proceed with will have to be looked at from the eyes of it being a complete streets, a term that Mark doesn't like, but.
Well, like different people understand different things, that's why.
But
It's ambiguous.
But it means to us that we have to make those accommodations as best as we can without blowing the budget, bicycle accommodations, pedestrian friendly, improve safety, reduce bicycle stress, all of those things. We'll bring those into as we design. So for instance, we have been proceeding with the design of the sidewalk extension on Walden Street from Magnolia Drive all the way to Bristol's Hill Road. We asked the consultant to hold up. Let's look at what can we do within the street, get some usable shoulders. I wouldn't call them bike lanes because it really never is the real estate for us to do bike lanes. But probably except for Elm Street, as Bill mentioned. Typically you can get a shoulder. And we've heard, from others that a 3.5 foot wide shoulder is somewhat comfortable for bicycle. So that's kind of what we're shooting for as a minimum as we look at all of these projects. So that's the approach we'll take as we look at projects.
But will you have a very preliminary design that you can then bring to TAC for public input before it goes further?
Right.
Like, it seems like that would save
Yeah,
time and money for
agree.
everybody and stress. And
It would be great too if there were several of them, like you bucketed them together, like the next, I don't know, X months. That people could look at look at, you know, we could publicize in our meetings. And people could look at preliminary documents and sort of see. Not just the complete streets, but what their view is, so that you have the public behind the project.
Yeah.
Which I think would be awesome.
Yeah, I think another way, but the question would be to the civil engineers here. It, you know, depends on the scope of the project and everything, I'm sure, but in terms of, and it's the sort of a chicken and egg fact and the funding chicken and egg fact, but being conscious that having a sort of conceptual design without necessarily having 10 alternatives that people vote on, but something that allows a ramp, you know, a door into the project for the public, so they kind of get a sense. You know, even like, well, here is the area, here's the physical area that might be changed or changeable, the outline. Whatever can be done in a preliminary, useful, meaningful, factual way, but as early as possible to bring the public along. Yes. And this is going to be even more important for some of the multi-million-dollar projects for which there will need to be an initiative moving to a town meeting vote or some other kind of big time funding that takes a longer time stuff.
Because
to
people-
mesh it with this work.
question.
So I want to just say thank you very much to our consultants and our staff for doing a really great job in getting this process going. And one of the things that we mentioned at the TAC meeting was that the process that we are undertaking is like breaking in a new car. We've just got the car keys, we're gonna turn the car on, we're gonna get it started, right? And we're gonna try it out this year and see how it works. So my question or request really of this team is to think about creating a set of metrics for accomplishment as you move forward through this first year as part of a shakedown, so that the public can understand what we did, how well we did it, and where there might be room for improvement. So, you know, as you look at each project, my hope is that you have a system where you can have feedback and you're getting regular feedback as to what you're doing and whether or not it's accomplished what you expected it to accomplish or whether or not it might have fallen short. The other thing is that I think it would be great if there could be more clear information about what you're doing on a closer to real-time basis so that the public can understand it and you can get some transparency. And at the end of the steps that you're taking, there'll be documentation as to what you actually did. One thing that is very clear when you compare the PCI index initiative, that's very objective. It's pretty clear. You know, you regrade a street, you do stuff, it's either done right or it's not, right? With the safety stuff, it's harder. It's a lot harder. And I think the public needs to understand that, you know, there are trade-offs, there are big cost issues, et cetera. But if you're clear about goal setting and you take the time to check in, I think you'll find that people will buy into that.
I think the check-ins are gonna happen with PAC.
Right, and I expect that that's going to be a part of our process. The big concern that I have is the communication flow.
Right.
Because if we don't have the information to respond to the public, we won't be able to give them anything meaningful. So we need to have a process where we're regularly updated about what's going on. And, you know, what it means and what choices you made and why you made them, so that, you know, we'll be able to communicate to the public. Also, so that if something comes up, we'll be able to communicate to you that something has changed. So the first item on the list that we got last week was Kenny Dunn Square.
Right.
Right, so, you know, I live down the block from there, pretty familiar with it, as you know. Maybe there's going to be a brand new, you know, expanded gas station there. Maybe they're gonna do some work. They're in the permitting right now. Maybe not. Maybe, you know, the conditions will be so onerous that they won't, that they'll just throw in the towel and say no. But here's where the feedback loop is. If you guys are understanding that that's going on and are informed about it, then you can make, you know, you can change your plans to reflect actual on the ground conditions. So I'll just leave it at that. So my hope is that we have really good communication.
So I like processes, and I'm still struggling with, and perhaps you have more information because there were some discussions at tech and whatever is how a process works, but we have the planning department, we have engineering, we have public works commission, we have tech, we have traffic management group. So it sounds like a lot of kitchen. A lot of
cooks and a lot of kitchens.
Yeah, and a lot of kitchens and a lot of running around. So are we having an agreed process between the different groups I just mentioned?
You mean, like, should we hire a transportation specialist?
No, I'm just like, let's pick 2026, I don't know, Stowe Street work, yeah? So you have it on your agenda, it's clear, it's there. So what's the process that all these parties suddenly say, yeah,
I think it's an obvious fact that TAC is a committee of residents who meet occasionally, every 3 weeks right now. And if you think about the work that has to be done, there's no way TAC can do it in the time that it spends working on it, right? It's just not working this way. And just what Andrea said, it was in the long-range plan some 8 years ago that there should be a transportation function in the town, by which it was meant a person. And it was really clear that it didn't say what department that person should be in. It just said this town desperately needs a transportation function that's ongoing. And to me, that function is what would begin to embody the information flows that are required between engineering and the rest of the
my question is, do we have an agreed process as of today? And a yes would be already happy. I would be already
The
happy.
answer is.
Yes?
It's not finalized.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I think it's a work in progress, and what TAC is not leaving the town. So that, TAC is certainly in the middle of it, and we need professional staff. You know, to manage a very big part, but I think we're still working.
And
on
you're feeling with the concept, whatever the process is coming together, that this works for you on the engineering side on the aggressive rollout of this program.
Am I comfortable? I'm not 100%. I mentioned at the last TAC meeting, you know, because we've been discussing this process for a while. And I was, you know, several people, but take your time, get it right, get the criteria right, select the projects, because we don't have to do the wrong project. A lot of people will be unhappy if we select the wrong projects, the wrong projects rise to the top. So we definitely follow that. But because the paving has to move forward, suddenly there is an urgency to get some kind of concurrence on what shall be done. So Alan described that best at the beginning, said, this is our first year.
Yeah.
Let's first have return the keys, and we'll be focusing on the low cost projects, the low hanging fruit projects. So they'll be significant, but not big. So no real design. I don't think there'll be a lot of public pushbacks if we're going to be widening shoulders, narrowing lanes, doing some curb ramps, fixing some sidewalks, you know, add some signs, some flashing beacons, maybe testing out, piloting some raised tables. Temporary. We can do all of that in the first year. Not a lot of decisions need to be made. I think that should be a quick turnaround from TAC.
But maybe one of the questions.
I wanna say, I've been waiting for this for a while, and I'm really encouraged by what you presented today. The fact is that a process is being designed as we're moving along. It's not like someone designed a process and now we're gonna implement it, okay? So by necessity, it's being designed as we move along. My biggest concern is what I would call loading, which is whether or not TAC is gonna be able to respond as quickly as it would like to this, because there's a lot to be thought about, and a lot of time has to be spent digesting what you've done and then figuring out what to do with it.
Can I just offer, I think it's gonna be very important, the next meeting with TAC is you still haven't seen the man behind the curtain. It's just a guy. There's no wizard here.
It's not
And when you have the tool and we have that conversation, there's gonna be a lot of, oh, okay. I said, the tool we're developing is simply a lens. A lens is gonna focus on activities that a lot of people are concerned they've raised, but no one's paid attention. We're gonna capture those activities. We're gonna identify sort of where we think there's some low-hanging fruit. And if it isn't, we'll find out with a conversation with TAC. But once you see the man behind the curtain and the tool, you'll know what it is, which is really important, because right now you still are, I can't read that. And you'll also know what it isn't. And I think that meeting is going to be very important. I know we're going to get some of these improvements in safety metrics in the construction season. Many are low cost, not controversial, and those that are more controversial, high cost, there's going to be all sorts of time to deliberate. They're going to be, multi-year efforts. They're going to start with a conversation. They're going to be followed up with possibly investments of money that there's an agreement. Maybe TAC is recommending, maybe design. So we're not solving all the world's problems with this, rollout, but let us get you the tool. Let us have the conversation, and let's see where there's going to be, if it's 50% agreement, we're going to be tackling a lot of things that we all agree, no, they should be done sooner rather than later.
Go ahead.
One final question, one
So
final question is, on a follow-up, is, do we have classification? It could be easy that we have some kind of guidelines across certain buckets, to say it's a neighborhood street, there are a set of guidelines that a TAC and whoever agrees on, says, if engineering goes ahead and touches a neighborhood street, if they execute along a certain set of guidelines, they can just run with it. Instead of bringing every street and every project into, so can you cluster things? It's just can you cluster things? Say.
That's a question.
No, can I just?
I don't think
think
you can.
Nick, wait a minute. I think that really what's important, and I really understand what Alan's saying. I think we need some examples, some case studies, pick something that, figure out the criteria, figure out what's important to people, and, drive the car, test the tool. Because I think part of it is, I don't feel like I want to boil the ocean. I want to use some example, some case study that gets people involved, gets the community involved, gets people who are neighbors saying, I like this or I don't like this. I think it's the conversation. That's what TAC's supposed to do, is conversation, not engineering. So I'd say that I would like to select a few, not like boil the ocean, because I do worry about overload. You can't meet every 2 weeks, do everything.
Can we just take some help from anybody from the public that wants anything to say anything? Paul?
Yeah, I just want to say you've launched something really important. I think you talked about that. I don't know which metaphors is best. You have the car. I think I witnessed the gestation birth of a baby here. You've been talking about this for a while.
That's pretty, right?
The other metaphor is assembling a plane while it's flying.
Oh, yeah.
And we're doing all that. It's just the start of a process. And I think, Sven, you're right. We have to work out all the bugs between all the various entities here, but we've talked about that. But I think this is a remarkable start, because what you've done is you've taken some bonded money, $27 million, and you've figured out how we're going to connect the paving with the safety issues, and which is very important to the public, because prior to this, these several hundred
requests have been circulating within the TMG in an endless loop, and haven't figured out how to get these out. Now you've figured out how to unleash some of these projects by using the money, by coordinating. So I hand it to you. So Steve, you've been a great listener on this, very patient, as everybody kind of tried to put the hammer out at some of the initial things with Steve and Stantec and led by Alan. I think it's a good, tremendous start. And just congratulations on it.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Yes, Linda.
I'm very happy with the presentation that you gave today. I feel like you've listened and you've made a lot of progress, and it's not perfect and we still need to do a lot of work and there's a lot of back and forth, but I think it's a fantastic start. And I also want to give a plug for transportation planner, as Andrea suggested, because it is a lot of coordination. It really helps if you have a point person as a staff member to help coordinate all that. You appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff Collins, 55 Highland Street. Yeah, great conversation. Thanks. I look forward to the next TAC meeting to sort of observe the conversation about what's behind the curtain. A couple of things. Steve mentioned a previous endorsement of a 3.5-foot bike lane. That was in the context of Baker and Maine, where it was really trying to address or operate within the constraints there. I wouldn't want that to become kind of the regular minimum, but maybe like a special case where we have to go down that far, but where there's wider, if we could, I think combining the narrower vehicle travel lane with as much real estate for bicycles outside the shoulder would be great, because then you're also helping address vehicle speeds in a way that Sven spoke about. I think that Steve emphasized several times the pavement has to get started because there's a lot to do. Andrea asked once, what is the deadline for this input? And I still haven't heard that. So I would like to track that so that public comment is coming in a timely fashion, and that, you know, this conversation doesn't lead to stress for Steve. And then finally, I shared some thoughts with Andrea and Mark and a couple of staff members just hearing at the last TAC meeting. And Bill said here, like, there's an opportunity to incorporate public feedback. If that could be shared with Bill, I think hopefully that could share some perspective as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I have shared that, passed that on, had that passed on to TAC members, and also it's posted as a meeting document. We can bring up the fact that exists at next TAC meeting on the 24th. Mariana and Rebecca are online. Did either of you, I haven't heard anything from either of you. Did either of you want to comment?
I'll just say that I also really appreciated this conversation, and I do have some questions, but I'll hold them until we get that additional information from Stantec. That's exciting to get those additional details. But thank you.
Mariana?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Nothing to add.
Okay, we gotta get out of here. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
For what?
I, Gretchen Schmerbach, hereby make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor on public works?
Aye.